Welcome back to another episode of Cobra Kai Kompanion, and I am Peter. And today, you guys, I am honored to have my two guests, Jetta Juriansz, who plays Allie from the Karate Kid musical, and also Alan H. Green, who plays Kreese. Welcome, you two.
Thank you. Thanks for having us.
Yeah, no, thank you so much for carving out some time to speak with me. I know you guys are super busy. At the time of this recording, we got just a few days, actually less than a week now. So we will get into it. I want to have the listeners learn about you guys before we start talking about the musical a little bit. So we'll start off with Jetta. You are a writer of sorts, not just comedy, because you also do Studio C. We'll have you talk about that, but I'm really interested to hear you talk about your music, My Nothing and Baby Blue. I've had those two. Yeah, those two songs I've had on repeat all day. My baby or Baby Blue rather is just is very uplifting, and it's a fun song. And when we were testing the audio, I was trying to throw in the little, like, we're kids in a big kid's body, so I was trying to throw out some of the lyrics, but the one I'm really interested, I just absolutely love My Nothing. It's a beautiful song, and the part where you say just pretend you don't listen, I can't tell the difference at this point. I felt that. I felt that. You
resonated.
Yeah. Are you able to share your, I don't know if there was any inspirations into writing those particular pieces?
I started writing probably like 6 or 7 years ago because me and my friends had a writing group and we just started writing things in my friend's shed. And I decided I was just going to only write music for the time being. And I wrote a ton of songs just based off of the homework we gave each other. And I don't even remember what the prompt was for that one, but most of the music that I released came from writing songs in my friend's shed. But yeah, so My Nothing I wrote a few years ago and then I finished it. And most of the songs I write, I make with the idea of turning them into a music video. And My Nothing, I had a really clear image of what I wanted to make with that. And I recorded it and filmed a music video all within a week, which is, I'm just lucky I have crazy friends who are willing to say yes to the things I ask them to do. So yeah.
That's really awesome. I definitely encourage the listeners and viewers, go check that out. Your voice and the music, it sounds so familiar. Like I feel like I've been listening to you for a really long time. So
his voice is like a pillow.
Isn't it? Yeah.
Head on it. And
yes.
Surround your whole face with the softness and the sweetness of that pillow. It like her voice is like comforting, literally like a pillow. You can. I'm good for real. That's the key.
Yeah, it's so good. Yeah, just My Nothing. Oh, it's chef's kiss. I love that song. No problem. Yeah, I don't listen to the radio a lot. I listen to a lot of like the stuff I grew up listening. I just go back and recycle that stuff. But I'm adding this into my library. So I really love it. Alan, there's so a veteran actor of sorts. You guys both have done television too, but Alan, you have such great stories. I listened to a couple of interviews of yours today. I love the reasoning for you adding the H to your name. Do you want to share that little story?
Oh, that's my dad. My dad's name was Homer Green. And so I'm Alan H. Green to honor my dad. And it's so funny. So we just had a prop in the show that was a picture of me as Kreese that they had photoshopped. I don't want to get too much.
Yeah, we can't say too much.
So it was this big, huge photo of me, and I turned upstage and I looked at it, and it literally took my breath away because it looked exactly like my dad.
Oh,
and even Jake Billy Young, who plays Johnny Lawrence, he said to me after, he said, that's not an expression that I've seen of you in other photos of you.
Totally agree.
And I said, exactly, that's an expression of my father. And the way they photoshopped and dressed it up, it was interesting because it literally took my breath away, and I was about to have to like excuse myself, but then the stage manager said, hold please. So I just went into a dark corner, and not to sound like corny or anything, but it really made me think to myself, that's just the confirmation that I'm right where I'm supposed to be, doing what I'm supposed to be. And my dad is up there watching and proud as hell.
Alan, you're gonna
Yeah.
make me cry, and we just
Yeah.
started.
Yeah.
That's
No,
so
but it's real. Yeah, it was real.
beautiful.
And so
Yeah.
you won't see it in the show because it's a cut prop, but
It got cut?
yeah, they're gonna do something else.
Oh, darn. Are you gonna take it?
Yeah, we'll see.
Yeah.
It might end up in my mama house.
That's where it belongs. It's
Yeah, along with all the furniture from like 20 years ago or something like that. So there's another really great story. Like this is we'll get into it should you want to share, but there was an experience that you had when you lived abroad out in Germany.
Oh, sure. Yeah. So I grew up around all kinds of people, and certainly I had, as a large Black man, I had a lot of crazy things happen to me, but I didn't have an awareness of it because it was all that I knew. So, like they tried to not have me be in the gifted and talented program when I tested, and my father protested because we actually came from up north where kids started school a year earlier. So it wasn't that I was a genius, it was just that I had already had a year of school. And so when they told my dad I failed the test for the gifted and talented program, he said, I don't believe that, let me see the test. And anyway, my dad didn't give up, and I ended up retaking another test and made 100 and got in the program. And when we moved into the neighborhood that we moved into, our tree got burned down. We were the second Black family to move into the neighborhood, and they burned our tree down in the middle of the night. Now, I could go on and on with stories like that, right? But you asked 19, 20-year-old Alan if he experienced any racism, my answer would be no. And I literally would have said, oh no, people in my community, we didn't see color. That's literally what I would have said at 19 or 20, because I just didn't know. So I ended up around age 25, 26, moving to Stuttgart, Germany to do a production, the Broadway production of Miss Saigon in German. And I was there maybe the second week I was there, and I was in this grocery store. And this German woman was staring at me like she had never seen in person anybody who looked like me, right? But I also realized that in her staring at me, she wasn't afraid of me. She didn't have any preconceived notion about how I should talk or what music I should listen to or what sports I may or may not be good at. And it was almost like, for the first time in my life, a stranger looked beyond my color and just saw me. And I remember I went to my little apartment on Kleinknechtstrasse and called my dad. And it was literally in that moment that I realized that the oppression that I felt as a Black man in this country was so embedded in my DNA that I did not even realize it was there until I lived in another country where it wasn't. Now, let me be clear. I'm not saying that racism isn't in Germany, obviously. I'm just not the object of it over there in Germany. So that was a huge awakening for me, and something that I've talked about a little bit now that we're in kind of this new racial aware, people have blinders that have been lifted, and people are realizing that saying things like, I don't see color, is not actually a thing, because we want our color to be seen. We just don't want to be disenfranchised because of it.
I remember when saying that, people thought saying that was the most equal thing to say. And obviously it's not.
Right.
And,
it's one of those things where, like, people mean well for the most part. I like to extend grace to people. But the other thing we forget, particularly living on the coasts, New York and LA, is that there's still a lot of people, even in 2022, who are only ever around people who look like them and think like them. And so that's still a thing, that people only know what they know. But now we've come into a new awareness. And so hopefully the uneducated will start to be educated.
Absolutely. I love that story. And you get in so much deeper with it in that interview, and I'll try to link it into the show notes for those that want to watch it. It's not only a must listen. I think it's a very important listen for your story. So thank you for sharing
It's one of the reasons I have to tell people, it's one of the reasons I have grace for people who don't know, because I have to acknowledge that for the first 19 years of my life, I was the object of it and I didn't know. Okay. But that's how deep it is in the fabric of our country, that I was the direct object of it. But up until then, I was like, no, I didn't experience any racism in my life. What are you talking about? Because it just was part of literally my whole existence here. So, you know, I don't use it as an excuse, but I do use it as an awareness that people only know what they know. But it's time for people to know.
Absolutely. Yeah. Thank you again for sharing that. And I have heard that myself, you know, just a couple of years ago, that, yeah, I don't see color, you know, like, well, then you don't see me, because I have served 10 years in the military. And I remember getting in a heated exchange where I was telling someone else that I'm Asian American. And, you know, somebody who wanted to jump in our mentions, you know, he's like, no, well, you're born in the US, you are American. I go, no, so you don't even see my ethnicity then, like, so what is this? What is my culture? Like, I have a culture, I have a background. That's the Asian part of it. You know, yes, I'm an American, but I'm Asian American. So it was a whole ass thing back then.
It's interesting because there are a lot of those folks that want to claim that they don't see color are good, kind-hearted people. They really are. They just don't want to acknowledge that racism is a thing. I won't go into the story, but I called out somebody. Basically, I post on Facebook stories about things that happened to me, because then people are less opinionated about it, right? If we're going to talk about somebody getting shot from the cops or whatever, somehow that's always debatable. So I just try to share stories that happened to me. I'm in a dark parking garage and this happened, or I was, you know, on a train and a woman thought I was following her because, you know, we're both going to the food cart in the back of the train and there's one way to get there. So all these crazy things have happened to me, right? So I was telling this story about how I was buying a sport coat in a store in Manhattan. And I had the sport coat on, and this man walked in and said, "Oh, you look so nice. You must be going to the NFL draft." And I just turned my head slowly and said, of all the places I could be going in the world, what is it about me that makes you just assume that I'm going to the NFL draft? Why have you immediately looked at me and minimized me?
That's insane.
And I said, not that it's any of your business, but I'm going to the opening of a Broadway show. And so then, of course, after all that, I had to buy the jacket, right?
Oh, like, yeah.
Wrap it up, buy the
you
jacket.
had a Pretty Woman in. You said,
exactly.
Big mistake, huge.
So I wrote about that, and I wrote, like, you know, hashtag not a big deal, but I was just trying to share all these microaggressions. Yeah. Well, somebody on my Facebook, one of these folks who lives in a world where they'd like to not see color, wrote, "Oh, it's because of you're in such good shape, you should take it as a compliment."
Yeah, it's because you're in good shape. That's
so so then a whole bunch of people liked that comment, right? So I don't deal with like Facebook, you know, public conversations, but I called all those people and I said, what is it that gives you the authority to think that I shared that story for you to tell me what that story was about? Where does that authority come from? I didn't share that story for somebody to explain to me what happened. I shared that story so that you could learn. So where does your authority and audacity come from, where you think in a world where you've never been large and black and you weren't in that store, but yet you seem to think how I should respond to it? So the person was quiet, and then the person said, "Well, I just hate that this stuff happens to you," because this is a person who always wants to explain race out of everything. And yeah, it's not the only reason he said that. Had I been my black self in a wheelchair, he might not have said that, right? But it's the immediate minimization of me because of my blackness. And so the person said, "Well, I just don't, it's just hard because I hate to think that things like that happen to you." And I said, "Well, I need you to understand that it's your unwillingness to acknowledge that race was a part of it that perpetuates these things happening to me. You are actually the reason or part of the reason why this continues to happen, because we can't dismantle a system if there's a whole group of people who refuse to acknowledge that there's a problem in the first place.
Yes. And also making small or belittling or, dismissing something like that is what leads to bigger issues, because those sort of things happen all the time. Right. And so there, you can't, maybe it's easy for it to explain that one away, but you're coming from a lifetime of microaggressions and a million examples. So you know where it's coming from. You weren't asking for suggestions on what you thought other people thought she meant. So
Yeah.
I really thought we was going to be talking about the Karate Kid musical.
we will get to that. Well,
we're busy just handling racism.
Okay.
And that was the thing too. I was like, oh man. And so, we're probably about, I kind of lost track of time. Are we almost out of time?
No, of course not. We got to talk about this hit musical we doing.
Yeah, no, absolutely. But do give me the wrap up, because I kind of lost track of when I want to, kind of send you guys on your way. Yeah. I was just like, there's so much to talk about with you guys. But again, I believe it was, correct me if I'm wrong, Front Center Mezzanine, the show that you were on, Alan, to talk about your story. It was like two guys from last year, I think it was.
Oh, is that? Oh,
I think that's what it was called.
Oh, I don't know if that was the name of it.
There might be two names or something.
Yeah, it might have been two names, but I did, honestly, I did a lot of podcasts over the pandemic.
Yeah.
So, but I don't.
Same. So many.
She's a comedian.
So yeah, I mean, I thought that was something worth kind of mentioning, because the cast is so diverse, and I think it's beautiful. And I just
say too, since we're talking about this and going down this line, that not to be indelicate, but nobody had to be murdered for us to be a diverse cast. Mm-hmm. This show 6-7 years ago in development, they just found people that they liked in the parts. Okay.
It's also it's diverse. It's diverse in so many ways. It's you're seeing different people with different backgrounds, different talents, people coming from totally different industries, different worlds, different body types, ages. It's diverse in so many ways. So
and I'll take the the baby steps of folks doing it because they think, oh, we have to do this. But that's not what's happening with this musical. This is just a creative team that always was interested in representing this kind of American story with America. And so I think you can feel the authenticity when you can tell when it's checking boxes. And again, in some of those instances, I'll take it. That's a baby step. That's okay. But you can tell when there's a sincerity, and it just goes back to, the original producer who wanted to do this in the first place, mm-hmm. because the story meant so much to him
in Okinawa,
that he wanted to share this in a new form with the world. And so you can just feel the respect and the honor. I certainly can feel it when I'm watching the parts of the show I'm not in.
Absolutely. Yeah. And Alan was born to play Kreese. When I see you do it, I literally can't picture or imagine anyone on earth who could do what you are doing.
Well, thank you.
It is just true. There hasn't been a single time I've watched Alan do some of the numbers that he does in the show where I don't literally scream my brains off when the number is over. It is unlike anything I've ever seen live, hands down.
It's interesting because in the first part of my career, I always played the guy, the valiant kind of hero guy. Mm-hmm. And then I got to a point where I was everybody's dad. And I'm still involved in some of those projects where I play dads. And I think because I had such a phenomenal dynamic father, I just have that to pull from, whether I'm playing my dad or not. That's always my reference point. But then in the last 10 years, I started playing bad guys. And
oh my God.
And the thing about Kreese Crease is a lot like a lot of I played football in Texas, and
yes, and then you became a lawyer too, right, or law school, or other story.
Crease, yeah, that's a whole other podcast. Crease is a lot like a lot of my football coaches, except Crease is worse. My football coaches really thought the treatment they were doing was for the betterment of the student. Well, Crease ain't really caring about the student, but there's a lot of similarities between some of my football coaches and Crease. So it was easy. I mean, beyond obviously the legacy that Martin Cove has created with the way he has done this and created this character in such a brilliant way. So of course to add that to it, and I came on board actually just singing some of the songs in a presentation in the Bahamas. Drew was singing Mr. Miyagi, his sister was singing Allie and Lucille.
Yes, that's
and
right.
Trevor was out there singing Daniel. And so that's how I was first introduced to this world. And it wasn't to play the part really, just like Drew was singing for Miyagi. He would obviously not play that part. It was just to sing it. But then I met Mark Kamen and they were like, oh, wait a minute, this is a good match. Perfect. And then I kind of just became a part of the family. And again, it wasn't, nobody decided Crease was going to be a particular color or not. That wasn't, I started to learn the music and then everybody involved was like, oh, this is a good match. And here we are.
It reminds me, when I watch you play Crease, it reminds me of a director I had who once said that characters that we play aren't replacements of who we are. They're everything we are plus a whole other person. And when I watch you play Crease, I see all of your charisma and all the things that make you Alan, plus this very complicated evil man. And it makes it's just such a dynamic performance. It's not just like an evil, it's not just a simple evil bad guy. When you see and it makes it so much more like delicious to watch. It's just so good. It's so good. I love it.
That's all we hear.
I love it.
Yeah. Oh, you guys are so good at just carrying this for me. Like I'm just gonna listen.
Yeah, you're the two chattiest people.
Okay, we can talk.
Obviously, we know that the movie has been around for so long. How familiar were of the movie were you guys before landing your roles?
Very familiar. Yeah, I mean, Karate Kid is like beloved. I think that I don't know a single person who hasn't seen it or knows about it. And then especially with Cobra Kai, which I watched, I was super familiar, but I didn't rewatch the movie again until after I had been cast as Allie, because I didn't want to get in my head or, be copying or anything like that. I just wanted to read what they were giving me, because you don't know, you don't know if they want it to be different. Right. You don't know if they're like, that's how it was, we want something new. So I just tried to do what I thought Allie was and bring myself to it. And then when I rewatched it, I was like, okay, yeah, I like Allie. This is gonna be fun.
So I've done a lot of musicals based on movies for whatever reason, and I have never rewatched the musical. I've never watched the movie before. Mm-hmm. Now, in some instances, I mean, certainly I had seen The Karate Kid, right? And yes, Cobra Kai. We all watched it during the whole world watched it during the pandemic, and we're still watching it because it's good. Because Cobra Kai don't never die.
I will never die.
So what I do, exactly what you just said, it's because I want to come to the table with what the words in front of me, how they speak to me. Mm-hmm. I don't want to come to the table with a preconceived notion of what this character should be or has to be. Mm-hmm. And so what I've done in every case, and I'm doing it with this one, is I get through tech. And once I have been completely teched through the show, then I will rewatch the movie. Because now I know exactly what I think I should do and what feels organic to me. And then when I'm done getting completely teched and while we're doing previews, that's when I'm going to go back and watch the movie and be like, okay, let me refresh my mind on what Martin Cove did.
Oh, wow.
And so that served me well, because, the whole thing about these movie musicals is there's certain expectation that needs to be met. Mm-hmm. It's so funny. Just the other day, I was like, oh, I think Crease should have a tattoo. And so we kind of talked about that. And then somebody was like, yeah, he has one in the movie. I was like, oh,
Good
I
instinct.
just thought I was being brilliant, but that's what I mean. It's like I'm thinking about Crease beyond the movie and what it speaks to me organically, just like Jetta's doing such a beautiful job with Allie. She just turns it out. And it's interesting because Allie just has this universality that like you just like her immediately, and that's who Jetta is. And so she really is kind of is Allie-esque, if that's a thing I could say. And Jetta and I don't know each other that well. This is interesting. Like you're talking about her music, and literally as soon as we close this, I'm going to run to wherever and go listen to those songs because I know what her voice sounds like. So we're still getting to know each other. And also, Crease and Allie are
we do not interact.
We don't interact at all.
We have one scene together, but we get kind of. We don't look at each other, but we exist in the same world. But yeah, that's so kind of you to say.
So I'll rewatch the movie once we've completely teched everything, and then I'll sit back and watch the movie. But it's very, and particularly with Cobra Kai and how like deliciously fantastic that is.
And in a way, we're so lucky to be doing Karate Kid the musical after Cobra Kai. I feel like just the fan base is so rich with generations of fans who love the story and how much it means to everyone. I think we really feel the weight of that and the weight of wanting to make it everything that it deserves to be. And that's why everyone's being so intentional and so careful. And if there's like one thing I can stress about this show, it's that it's being handled with so much care and so much intention and integrity. Yes. And I really feel like this is my first like real professional stage experience. So there's been so many times where I'm just like overcome with emotion and gratitude for this experience. And I'm like looking around, I'm like, is this normal? Like, is this just how it is? I asked John, I was like, is this how every show is? Does it always feel like this? Like, is the chemistry always this good? Like, is it always this special? And he was just like, no.
Yeah, no.
He was like, it's not. No, this is special.
You can feel when somebody is like, oh, let's take this property and make a whole bunch of money. Mm-hmm. And there's nothing wrong with that. I'm not pleased. I want us all to make plenty of money.
Yeah.
But you could also tell when somebody is like, oh, this story has affected me. And so I want to send it out into the world even more, or in a different way, or in a new way, because it really changed and affected me. And I think it still has that power to do that for other people. And we want it to be a hit and make a lot of money. But that's not like, you can just tell.
Oh my gosh.
So that's what John means by like, yeah, it's not always like this. And these producers, Kamiko and Brendan and, our director, Moan, and they're just filled with, the word I just keep coming back to is integrity.
Yeah.
And as we all know, the arts or just the world in general doesn't always have integrity. It's just the truth. Right? And so when you're working with a group of people that are just coming from a place of honor and integrity, it just permeates the whole thing.
We had a SITS probe yesterday, which I didn't know what that was, so I'll just tell you. But it's like when the band plays the music for the first time and we all get to sing it. So basically, that was the first time ever in the history of the world that these new songs were sung with a full band. And it was I think like one of the most gratifying and emotional moments of my career ever. I was bawling for 95% of it. And I was looking around the room, everyone's just crying. Like we're all like, our hearts are pumping. And there's just it's so exciting to be in a room like that with just like, just the most talented people I've ever worked with, but also like some of the most genuine, caring, loving people telling such an amazing story that resonates with so many people. It's like, it just feels like this gigantic thing that I am like a little puzzle piece in. And every moment I'm like, how did I get so lucky? How is this happening?
And then, Drew Gasparini, he just
a genius.
Wrote just some tunes. And
my gosh.
But then also, again, going back to our producers, Kamiko, they sent Drew to Okinawa to work with some Japanese musicians so that he could come up with the voice of Miyagi. And I mean, that kind of producing and development, that doesn't happen a lot.
No.
People are like, let's take this title everybody knows and get it to Broadway immediately. But they wanted to get this right, and they wanted to do it the right way. And then, of course, to have Robert Mark Kamen, who wrote the movie, you know, in the room.
You have the voice in the room.
And as most people know, this story is autobiographical for him. So for him to be moved by a new song that's written by a story that he wrote 40 years ago, and he's visibly shaking and moved because 40 years later, it still is affecting people and has stood the test of time. To be a part of that, to be that little cog, I mean, you just know it's special. You know, and then, you know, our designers, the lighting and the set and the wardrobe. I mean, just, it's all just from just an incredible intentional place of integrity, and everybody's got the same vision. And then come on, Keone and Mari are choreographers. The movement element. So I'm always like, look, when you do these movie musicals, you got to do the movie, but then you got to give them something that the movie either doesn't do or can't do. And that is Keone and Mari. This movement element and the thoughtfulness of the way the world moves in the Miyagi world, and then the way the world moves in the Cobra Kai world. It is just, it's almost like nothing I've ever seen in a Broadway show.
Oh yeah.
And I've seen a lot of Broadway shows.
But it's also like the movement has its own language. Like any movement you are seeing is chosen from a place of like, that's driven by plot, that's driven by story, that's driven by where the character's coming from. So anytime someone's dancing, it's not just like dancing. It's not just like beautiful dancing, which I appreciate to begin with.
We love that.
I love a good dancing moment.
But movement that is also storytelling and propelling the narrative through the movement on top of the incredible book and the incredible music and the lighting and the set and our costumes. I mean, it's all come together in a really incredible way. And we, you know, you don't want to be too, like, you don't want to get cocky or whatever, but we can feel how special this is.
For sure.
And like you were saying a couple of minutes ago, the fact that there's this whole Cobra Kai world of people and awareness and fans who are going to eat this up. To sit in a room and have their world just be musicalized and choreographed around them in an incredible theater space like we have here at the Kirkwood Performing Arts Center, and stages. St. Louis has pulled out the stops to just make sure that we have everything that we need. And Jack and Gail have just been here every day and part of the process.
So hands-on.
And, you know, this is a big, huge thing for stages, and actually a big, huge thing for the St. Louis musical theater scene period. I think this is the first time that something has been a pre-Broadway that hit St. Louis. And then St. Louis has the nerve to be a real cute town.
Oh my gosh, we're having a great time.
Yeah, it's like St. Louis is like a sanitized New Orleans with a little bit of Austin thrown in. It's like a PG New Orleans.
The reviews are in.
Yeah.
They
like
should put
people
that on
are
the
like
pamphlet.
cool and have tattoos, and like there's a lot of
food.
There's great food.
Yeah.
And these are some of the friendliest people I've never been around.
So nice. Yeah, I know we're from New York and LA, so we're like, no attitude?
Yeah, exactly.
Are you really smiling at me?
So the whole thing, just the show being here in St. Louis with stages, and it just, the whole thing, it's like an incredible simpatico.
100%. And it's also, I am coming from a totally different world. Like this is so insanely new to me. And I was so worried that I was going to be holding it back in some way, or just feel really out of place or not fit in. And people just welcomed me with open arms, and they just answer all of my questions. Like everyone just has like been so loving and warm and welcoming, and it's just made this process that much more special. I just can't believe it. I never want it to end.
It's been a great time.
Yeah, you guys have such great energy, and there's something about the Miyagi verse is what the fandom calls it. And you know, we've spoken with so many people part of both the Karate Kid movies and from Cobra Kai, especially Cobra Kai. People are always sharing how it's like a family. everybody loves the movie and the property so much. Everyone is taking very good care of it. They don't want it to be a joke, and they put in a lot of love. So I'm hearing like a similar thing with this production. How are we doing on time?
They said we have about 5 more minutes.
5 minutes. Okay, perfect. So Jetta, we spoke with LP, and he was sharing about how we're seeing more of Freddie than we did on film, and I'm assuming we're getting more Allie with an I as well. Can you tease some things that people can see with Allie in the musical?
Yeah, absolutely. I feel like in the movie we got to see a little taste of Allie, and as an audience member I just like assumed like there was more. Like I just, you fill in the blanks as an audience member. Like you get an idea of what her parents are like, you get an idea of what her home life is like, and in the musical we have the opportunity to just see what it's like for her and her day-to-day life outside of being with Daniel, and you get to know what she wants to do and what she wants to be and how she's figuring it all out as a teenager. And it's funny because so many times I've been taken back. Like Allie really reminds me of me as a teen. I'm like, I just so relate. I relate to her need to be understood, and she's such an honest person. Like, I mean, without giving anything away, she pretty much knows what she wants right away, and she says so right off the bat. And something I really wanted to explore was also her past with Johnny, because they dated. Like, I think sometimes it'd be easy to just be like, she hates him and that's that. But really, this is someone she grew up with and someone who probably knows her better than most people. And so my binder is like full of like pros and cons lists for Johnny and pros and cons lists for Daniel and all that stuff. But yeah, Allie is someone who's honest, she's upfront, she's outgoing, and she's also just like figuring it all out. She's 17, she wants to be someone new, she wants to change her own life, and when you're 17, that's kind of hard.
Fantastic. Yeah, we can get into so much more, but I definitely want to speak to Alan about Crease here. So like your voice, Alan, is so beautiful. The first I don't remember the title because I just put YouTube on in my pocket and I just listened to it while I was working. And there was a song that you sang. I was like, he sounds like Luther. It just so beautiful. And then you did a cover of
Never Too Much with Charlie Rosen.
Yeah, it was so good. And your version of I Believe I Can Fly was so moving. Yes, exactly. So you guys gonna have to check each other out here.
Yeah, I was about to say we'll be YouTubing each other.
That your version was so moving. I nearly teared up. I remember where that song takes me to like middle school. But and then we heard from Drew about this. I don't know. I don't remember the words exactly that he described it, but just this metal song for Crease that he wrote. And I'm trying to picture. And obviously I'm listening to Alan sing, and I was like, how does that translate? How does that work? Can you talk about singing Crease?
It's a pretty special, let's see, what can I say? I will just say humbly, of course, it's a pretty special melding of the two worlds of this hard rock, but then there's also some soul, and it's definitely theatrical. Oh. And, Drew wrote an incredible score, and certainly that's an incredible tune, Strike First, Strike Hard, No Mercy. But then he let me offer some tweak suggestion ideas when we first were doing it. And it was kind of funny because when I first sang it in the Bahamas with him, he gave me, I didn't realize this, he only gave me part of the song. And so the song kind of just started. And so I learned it and I said, I feel like the beginning of the song needs to be like a little recitative, like slowed down. Like, I don't know that we just want to start the song at the top. And he was like, actually, there is that. It's a part that I didn't give you yet, but that's actually how the song starts. And that's what I mean by simpatico.
I was going to say that's
like I heard a part of the song and immediately was like, oh, I think it needs to start a little bit more relaxed and then get in, ramp into it. And but that's actually what he wrote. I just only, didn't know that. So it's quite the combination of a couple different worlds.
It's show-stopping.
And then the other thing too is like, I don't come on till I'm the last one introduced. So to like kind of sit around backstage and then have to come on and bam, just totally change the energy of the entire show.
So true.
That's another thing that I'm like trying to navigate, so I'm not like, scrolling on Instagram and then come on and be, like
and be warm and everything.
It's easy to do that when you're not kind of in the first part of the show. But yeah, but Drew and I definitely kind of, obviously he wrote the song, but we kind of linked and synced in together about what it ultimately could be kind of right out the gate all those years ago in the Bahamas. So now it's like it's just organically what it is. And
Drew's also such a great collaborator. Like he just is always listening and he's always like open to conversation. Like my first week, he was like, I'm writing a new song. What do you think Allie would say here? And I was like, I think Allie is feeling like this. And he's like, okay, cool. And he came back the next day with lyrics that were like totally.
That was a good Drew impersonation.
That
was good.
Thank you. I'm a comedian.
Yeah, she's a comedian.
But yeah.
And then you have Andrew too, our music director.
Oh my gosh.
Who is so on top of it and so chill at the same time.
I always say that he's beautiful minding because he's always like, and then he plays and it's incredible. The two of them are just like such a dynamic duo. They're like just geniuses. I don't even know how to, I swear I've never like used that word so much in my life. And now it's just like coming out all the time. I'm like, you're a genius. You're a genius. But yeah, and they work together so well. I also was like, it's so crazy that you're both named Andrew. And Andrew was like, wait, huh? And I was like,
Drew
is Andrew. And he's like, I've never put that together. And I was like, you never considered that you're both named Andrew? Like he just didn't, he's busy making musical genius in his head. It's so fun.
Yeah. So I know time's running out. I once things start coming out about the musical, maybe that might be a better time, but I would love for you two to be back to talk more about yourselves, but also what you can share later on about the musical.
Jetta, we'll go and do a little research. We'll go and do a little research on each other, and then we'll come back and we'll tell you about the other one.
I like that. That's a good idea. I love following the both of you. Jetta, you're hilarious. I love the thing with you and LP yesterday, the tornadoing. Hilarious. I've watched it like 5 times in a row. I just the thing at the end, like, oh, it's really serious. We're tornado, like, oh, good timing. But great stuff, you guys. Thank you so much. If in the event we don't get to speak before next Thursday, sweep the stage. So good luck. Really appreciate your guys' time. So I'll put the things that we discussed, Alan, your interview, Jetta, your songs. Listen to each other's songs is really, really good. And thanks again for your time. I really do appreciate it.
Thanks for your passion and commitment and your love for the property. And it's so beautiful to have this whole other group, just like a whole other addition to the family.
And just welcoming us in and making us feel so welcome to this world that you know so well. So thank you. It means a lot to us.
And we can't wait for y'all to see
can't wait.
The Karate Kid, the musical.
Love it. Just call me Cousin Peter. That's it. All right, so I'll end it there.